Kellyanne Conway is back with more alternative facts. Here she is blaming the second impeachment of Donald Trump on Joe Biden.
And the third thing that's happened with Joe Biden in these polls is that the center has fallen out for him. Those people in the center who said he's going to unify, he's going to be bipartisan. Do you realize the most bipartisan action the Biden administration has taken, the most interested they've been in reaching out across the aisle and getting Republican votes, was impeachment? That tells you all you need to know about how they are fueling the divisions that are in this country.
Okay, so that was weird. So obviously, none of that was correct. I mean, look, you realize that Joe Biden, during the time of Trump's second impeachment, which was over January 6th, by the way, he wasn't in power. He hadn't taken power yet. You can't impeach someone who's out of power. I know, it doesn't make any sense. But again, very, very interesting pretzel logic here, especially, and I love this, because cable news has this fascination, this fixation on bipartisanship. And it drives me insane. It drives me completely up the wall because, unfortunately, when it comes to bipartisanship in Washington, that usually means corporations get a ton of money and, people get nothing. Regular working people don't get a whole lot. That's usually what happens. And that's what frustrated me about Joe Biden and his consistent calls with, wow, we need to reach out to Republicans, we need to work with Republicans. No, Republicans hate you. Republicans despise you. They're not going to work with you. And then, by the way, when they decide not to work with you, they're then going to slam you and say, why aren't you bipartisan enough? What's wrong with you? You said you're going to be bipartisan, and you just don't even work with us. You don't even reach out. No, Joe Biden has reached out a million times. And by the way, every time he does so, for the exact same reasons that I just laid out, it frustrates the hell out of me. And I'm like, no, you don't work with them because they don't want to work with you. They don't want to do good things with you. And by the way, if they do, then they'll take all the credit, which is exactly what happens. And it's actually what's happening right now with bipartisan infrastructure. The Republicans who have voted against it are going back to their districts and saying, look at the wonderful benefits of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Wonderful. Yes, wonderful. So, look, that's what they do. Again, back to the pretzel logic. All right? So, look, they say, I want to blame this guy and this administration before he took power for the thing that they had nothing to do with. Now, that's not to say that Joe Biden and the administration weren't interested in impeachment. I think they probably were. I think they're in favor of it. Great. Look, I was in favor of it because I think we got to stop this guy from running again because he's a clear and present danger because he incited people on January 6th. Unfortunately, the Democrats were not strong enough to do that and decided, no, we're not even going to try to prevent this guy from running again. Because I'm pretty sure we can use him later for whatever crappy candidate we put up in 2024, that, we could just say, but do you want Trump? Well, no, of course we don't want Trump, but we actually also want things like, I don't know, infrastructure that isn't privatized, childcare, paid leave, lower prescription drug prices, a higher minimum wage. None of the stuff that they've actually delivered, by the way, in any sort of meaningful way. So now, again, that goes to what she was actually talking about, the polling. The reason that Joe Biden's polls kind of suck right now was because he hasn't done what he said that he wanted to do. Okay, now, again, before I go into that, understand that you have a lot of things outside of Joe Biden's control. Despite him, of course, being one of the most powerful person in the country, there are things that he can't do unilaterally. For example, you've got inflation, you've got gas prices that are being blamed on him. I don't think that's his fault. That's COVID. You got Republican obstruction. That's also not his fault. obviously Republicans are going to obstruct him. They're the literal opposition party. We know. But he can push his party. He can police people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And there are things that he can do without needing the other party. For example, he could reschedule marijuana today, reclassify it. And by the way, then he could also release the nonviolent drug offenders from prison. There you go. You could do that. People that were unjustly arrested for possession of a plant. That, if he were to reschedule it, would no longer be illegal. He could also, by the way, cancel student loans. That's it. Student loan debt. He can cancel $10,000. He can cancel $50,000. He can cancel all of it, which is what I'm in favor of. But even if he does, even some of that, $50,000, for example, which would, by the way, help a ton of black borrowers specifically, because they have a lot more student loan debt. They have to take out a lot more in loans. And so that would be a huge boon to the black community, which is the biggest, most reliable voting bloc for Democrats. And by the way, some of the people who are the most upset with Joe Biden not following in his promises to help the black community. So the student loan thing, again, do it today. He has the authority to do so, and it would make a world of difference, especially to the people who are the most reliable Democratic voters. Do all that. That would excite people. Now, and again, for Congress, more pressure to pass Build Back Better. More pressure on even voting rights. I know Joe Manchin says, we can, you don't have to get rid of the filibuster. I can find Republican votes. I'm going to find no Republican votes. No, they're too busy trying to restrict the vote, trying to stop black people from voting. They're not going to vote with you on voting rights. They don't believe in democracy. They tried to use their democracy on January 6th. You think they're going to work with you? No, hell no. Bypass them. End the filibuster. And again, Biden can't do that unilaterally. Obviously, he doesn't have the power, but he could pressure certain senators into doing so. Hell, even on reproductive rights. Do something about, the court by hacking the court in order to protect Roe v. Wade, which is under assault right now. But forget all that, right? Well, don't forget all that. But moving on to another point, Kellyanne Conway specifically talked about, he's losing the middle. He's losing the center. Is he, though? Is he losing the center, and why? Again, let's go with the assumption that the center is independent voters, right? People that have not gone Democrats or Republicans, right? Because, again, they'll call some of the more centrist corporate Democrats, they'll still call them socialists if it helps them. And it does. But let's talk about independents, okay? Independent voters, very important. Very important. So among them, Biden's approval rating has tanked hugely. Biden's net approval rating among independents and polls back in September and October is at -16. -16. Now, of course, some Republicans and some corporate Democrats, they're going to tell you, well, the reason that he's losing independents is because he went too left. He went too lefty. He went too socialist. Too much money in the economy and it's caused inflation. Not true at all. Ridiculous, actually. No, what's going on right now with the inflation is, again, you've got COVID issues, the supply chain that is trying to catch up, and you have companies that have decided to price gouge. You have OPEC Plus that has raised, that has decreased production in order to raise prices artificially to make up for what they lost during COVID when demand was low. That's, again, nothing that Joe Biden can do anything about, but it's also the lie about inflation. Oh, gas is higher because of Joe Biden. It has nothing to do with it. These are corporations that are, and groups and countries that are absolutely greedy, that are taking advantage of people. Again, You want to talk about, oh, companies have to raise their prices. No, they don't. They don't have to raise their prices. Not when they've made billions of dollars during the pandemic and received billions of dollars in paycheck protection funds. Okay? That's government money, that's government grants and handouts given to them during the pandemic, in which they then turned around and used to buy back their own stocks. Give me a goddamn break. Give me a break. No, the inflation, that's just their greed. Their greed has been inflated because they know they can get away with it, and then blame blame the left for policies that were actually fairly, yes, popular, but also incredibly corporate. Again, the example of that, of course, is one of the COVID bills. In fact, the most recent COVID bill signed by Biden, it had billions of dollars in corporate welfare, but it also had some other good things in it as well, which is how they were able to pass it through. And specifically, I mean, pass the good things through by promising tons and tons of pork corporate welfare. That's generally how it works in this country. You can't get anything passed that benefits the average working person without attaching a ton of pork to it and a ton of corporate welfare. And that's exactly what happened with the COVID relief bill. But hey, it got people a $1,400 check. Where's that other $600? I have no idea. It's kind of disappeared. We're going to get you a $2,000 check. Oops. Oh, where'd your $600 go? Oh, almost there. Oh, nope. We're just going to say Trump gave it to you. Do you know how to do politics whatsoever? Oh, my God. Then you're going to give credit and be like, well, that's okay. We're not going to give you the rest of the money because Donald Trump already gave you $600. Why am I voting for you? Again, that's not what I think. Again, Donald Trump's a disaster. I would never vote for him in a million years. But like the average American person, the average American voter, the independent that like can swing either way, that is so important. They're not going to look at it that way. They're going to look at, well, Donald Trump suspended my student loans. I didn't have to pay any. Under Joe Biden, my student loans are coming back. And by the way, the migration student loans, for example, Sallie Mae, millions of consumers, whatever, that are being serviced again by them, are being migrated. And that's going to be an absolute disaster. I'm one of the people that have been moved for my student loans. That starts up at the end of next month. People are going to look at that and say, well, now I have to pay student loans again. We're still not recovered from COVID, from the economic strain of COVID. And now I got to pay student loans again? Another reason to cancel it. But they're not going to go in that direction. They're not going to go in that direction. So look, the whole idea that we went too far left is a ridiculous idea. It's not backed up by the facts. No, the facts are Joe Biden hasn't done enough. In fact, according to an NBC News poll finished in the back half of August, 32% of independents, including those who say they lean towards the Democratic or Republican Party, and 38% of pure independents, those who don't lean, say that Biden has accomplished a great or fair deal in office. So that's around a third. However, the vast majority, about 2/3, or the rest, 64% among all independents and 59% among those who don't lean towards a party, say that he has only done some to very little while in office. So, again, you look at the loss of favorability, -16 among independents, and then you look at that and you say, well, gee, maybe independents are saying we're not in favor of Biden anymore because he hasn't done much. Oh, well, that would make sense. That would make a lot of sense. It's about results. People want things to be done. Okay, people want to get stuff done. They want to feel like they're doing better than they were before. And I think a lot of people are not, unfortunately. And so now, as far as things that they approve of getting done, well, independents by 57 to 27% margin actually do favor the $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal. According to an average of recent Pew Research Center data, and Quinnipiac University polls. Now that passed. Joe Biden's already signed that. Now the thing about infrastructure is you're not going to see any benefit economically from it immediately. You're going to see in the long term. Of course, you're also going to see with this particular bill privatization of roads and bridges, which means more toll booths and toll roads. So that's going to be a net negative. Even then, at that time, by the time that comes around, Joe Biden's probably not going to be either in office, or it's not going to affect him too much, I would say. But at the same time, they looked at another bill. They looked at the $3.5, or what was the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package, Build Back Better, and they still supported it. 48% support versus 37% opposed. So these are independents that are like, no, we like a lot of the stuff that's in there. Because of course. And by the way, if you don't include party in all of this, if you just go by the policy positions, again, most people are in favor of the things that are actually in the bill if you divorce it from the party. And again, that's just because they want things to get done. They want things to be better for them economically. And that's it. So now, interesting point on that. A more recent Monmouth poll found that more than 2/3 of the American public, the Democratic Party, 69%, and the Republican Party, 69%, do not pay enough attention to everyday economic issues that affect people like them. And these issues, for example, drug prices. Drug prices. Very, very important, right? In fact, a West Health Gallup survey found that 80% of independent voters want Medicare to negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies, which would lower the price of prescription drugs. That was part of Build Back Better. No longer. They're going to negotiate, maybe, even if this passes, which is very unlikely now, something like 10 drugs. That's it. Completely watered down by corporate interests, and it will still never get passed. And so, again, we got none of that actual human infrastructure. The only thing was the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And again, the results of that are not going to show up to help average people. And so they're not going to feel any sort of increase in their material benefits, from any of the stuff the government is doing. And so they're going to vote for the other party. That's the problem here. And so now Kellyanne Conway knows this. She knows the polls. She's not an idiot. No, she's a professional propagandist. So again, polls, she literally ran polls before being in the White House. So she knows what the numbers are. She knows how to craft a message from those numbers in order to, basically spread the narrative that she wants to spread. And that's exactly what she's doing here. Oh, Biden's failing because, impeachment or insert whatever, critical race theory, it'll be next week. Because they already tried the he went too left thing, and it fell flat. Because here's the thing, though. What's interesting is bipartisanship, the whole idea of bipartisanship. Nobody actually cares. Nobody cares about bipartisanship. The only thing they see is, I don't know, I just want things to get done. If that means Democrats and Republicans have to come together, then just get something done. Just get something done. I want them to do something because we're struggling. I don't care about partisanship. I wish that's how this worked, but it doesn't. The fact is, whenever something is bipartisan, it's usually a giveaway to the rich and to the corporations because they're the ones who write the checks. Almost none of the things that actually get passed have any sort of material benefit to the average working class person. Now, they'll throw us a bone. Democrats are a little bit more likely to throw us a bone than Republicans, although, as you saw during the first part of the pandemic, you did have a Republican president and Republican Congress that were doing COVID relief, that were sending people $1,200 checks and unemployment benefits because of their beloved stock market. And they knew that they could try to run on it later. Didn't work, but they tried to run on it anyway. But Trump's botched response to COVID was too much for a lot of voters. So, yeah. But again, if you don't do something for the voters, and that's the overall point here, then the voters are going to switch the other way. And not the partisans. We're talking about, again, the center, the independent voters. Democrats didn't deliver. I guess we'll vote for Republicans. Republicans made things worse. I guess we'll vote for Democrats. On and on. It's an endless cycle, which ironically only benefits pollsters like Kellyanne Conway, cable news hosts, high-paid consultants for both the Democratic and Republican parties, and of course political donors. But it never benefits us. Weird. Weird how that works. No, not weird. Done by purpose. So we ultimately are going to need to break that system. The only way to do so that I see is to get money out of politics. It's the only way to break the hold that big moneyed interests have on our entire system. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.